Coming up next on Signals Music TV, 7 modes, 7 musicians, 1 epic jam. Featuring guest guitar solos from Rob Naples and Joseph Mills, piano and keys by Moog Lee and jazz legend Amy Nolte, as well as leads by Jake Lizio and funky trumpet man Roger Rupert.
I'm gonna make the Aeolian mode my
Also featuring drums by world-renowned percussionist Beardstick and advice on writing rhythms and leads in each mode. All this and more coming up next.
Hey, I'm Jake Lizio, and this video is going to be a demonstration of and a lesson on the parallel modes of major. We're going to be writing in C major in all of its parallel modes, so C Dorian, C Phrygian, and so on and so on. And we're going to keep everything at the same tempo and then cram it all together into one wild track at the end of this video. Now, I've already done videos on how to compose in every one of these modes, so instead of going into detail, I'm just going to give you some tips on how I was able to come up with these rhythm tracks and how the leads all functioned. So our first section is in C major, and I wrote this really simple 16-measure progression and then just turned it into power chords. Because in my mind, I was going for this really like celebratory, joyous, regal, uplifting, like a fanfare, almost like music you'd hear at a credit sequence, right? So I thought power chords would be a good way to accomplish that. And for this section, I was supposed to take the lead. So I wrote leads primarily just using the C major scale. Lots of bends, lots of vibrato, lots of C major arpeggios, but really all in the key of C major, except there's one little triplet lick where I end up bringing an E flat note in there, just for a little, like a campy little blues flavor, just for a tiny bit to give it a little bit of interest. Next was C Dorian. I wrote this really simple chord progression using just the chords of C Dorian, focusing on that 1 to the 4 change quite a bit. And then I added a walking bass line, and at that point I ended up dropping the guitar part altogether. I thought it sounded so good with just the drums and the bass, and the piano part that ended up on top of it. Now I wanted this section to have a really strong jazz vibe, but if you didn't notice, I'm kind of deficient in vitamin jazz. It's not a style I'm very experienced in or proficient at. So in this case, I decided to call in the experts. Amy Nolte is an LA-based performer and educator with one of the best channels available here on YouTube for anyone interested in jazz piano, vocals, or theory. She was kind enough to lay down a really awesome lead here for us, and I don't really have the vocabulary to describe exactly what she was doing. However, in an email she had mentioned that she was using a block chord style influenced by George Shearing, and then also using 4 notes from the Dorian scale, D, G, C, and F, which are all a fourth apart. But when you group them together in closer voicings, you can create some really nice tensions, a trick picked up from McCoy Tyner. So to get a good C Phrygian vibe, really all you need is a minor tonic and a flat major 2. So I wrote this very simple chord progression and sent it off to my synthetic audio advisor, Mike Mugley, aka Moog Lee. He was able to turn it into a cool Goa trance style beat by playing those same chords on a GUI synthesizer, adding some electronic drums, several extra synth layers, and then topping it all off with a screeching, pitch-bendy lead in pure Phrygian. For C Lydian, I imagined something a little bit more proggy, a little bit more disjointed and weird, so I wrote this riff in 6/4, which really just outlines the notes of our tonic chord, C major, with the tritone, and then also outlines the 2 chord, D major. And once I had that riff together, I called up Robbie Naples to do the lead. Robbie's a multi-instrumentalist who I'm lucky enough to call a former student. He laid down this really nice lead that very closely matches the rhythmic and melodic contours for the first half of the solo, and then in the second half just goes into shred mode to close things out. So for C Mixolydian, I was thinking like Jerry Garcia, Trey Anastasio, tie-dye, all that kind of stuff. So I took all the major chords that are present in C Mixolydian, and I threw them together with this fast little strumming pattern. Then eventually, I added a little bit of a rhythmic hook that just goes back from that B flat, the flat 7, to the C. And I do that a few times. So once you've got something like that, and you add drums, and you add bass, and you add piano, I had Moog Lee play some piano, you've got a juicy groove section that is just ripe for leads. So I called up my friend Joseph Mills to come in and do his best Trey Anastasio impression. As you can hear, he stays mainly in Mixolydian, and then highlights a little bit of that rhythmic hook near the end. For C minor or C Aeolian, I wanted something with more of a Latin vibe. And one of the most common progressions you hear in Latin music is the Andalusian cadence, which would be C minor to B flat major to A flat major to G major. And G major is the dominant chord in the key of C minor. However, the diatonic 5 chord is just G minor, so I decided we'd play around in that instead. So the chord progression I wrote is almost an Andalusian cadence. It starts off with a C minor, a B flat, an A flat, but then it skips over that G to go to F minor, and then to G minor. So it's a very close little rip-off of that same cadence. And I just have to bring up, it's easy to be addicted to that dominant chord in minor keys. I do want people to experiment with that minor 5 chord. There's a new song by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello that's called Señorita, and that whole song, you keep expecting that dominant chord to come in, but they always just give you the minor 5 chord. And I think it's a good example of being able to use it and still preserving that Latin vibe. So to take the lead here, I called up funky trumpet man Roger Rupert. He showed up in one of my earlier videos where I took one bass line and turned it into 5 different genres, and he was able to lay down a really nice mariachi-style trumpet line for us. Now, for C Locrian, I decided to work strictly rhythmically, because I really don't like the Locrian tonality, but I love the sound of a diminished chord. So we just plow away at this very, very silly rhythm on just a C diminished chord, then eventually resolving to a C major. And I had every single musician perform this part together. And I haven't mentioned the 7th musician yet, the drummer Beardstank. He had maybe what might be the most tough job out of all of us, playing all these styles uninterrupted, except for Phrygian. He got to sit that one out. And doing it, changing styles all on a dime like that, it's pretty impressive stuff, so keep your eye on the drum cam for sure. So, without any further hesitation, here's 7 modes and 7 musicians. So I really get a kick out of listening to that. And this is definitely the most difficult video I've had to put together. You know, I had to mix 8 different genres all together. That includes the intro song for this video. And putting it all together, collaborating with 7 different musicians at different times and places, and trying to make a lesson out of it, it's been a real challenge. So I hope you think it paid off, and I hope you learned something from it, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, you're going to have to thank all the musicians who donated their time and talent to help make this video as great as it is. Also, you can thank my Patreon supporters for supporting this channel and waiting patiently for videos like this to go out. If you wanted to join them, you can. There's links below to my Patreon, but you can also support this channel by buying my Ultimate Modal poster, which came out last month. There's links to that below as well. So please check the description and say something nice to all the people that have helped out in this video, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.